Welcome to round 3 of the TCX Cup live from the legendary Monza circuit in Italy. Last week, Martin Lawrence shocked the competition with a surprise victory over Raphael Huell, who started P5, and Klaus Neiring, your pole sitter from last week, throwing the title race wide open between Lawrence, Neiring, Verstappen and Huell, all covered by 11 points across the board. Tonight, we head to the Temple of Speed, also known as Monza, one of the fastest and most historic circuits in all of motorsports. Its iconic long straights and tight chicanes mixed with high-speed corners demand precision and courage from every driver. With the championship heating up, get ready for another thrilling race at this iconic venue. I'm John Dalton, your lead commentator. Alongside me, Matt Malcolm, with Jesse Lee behind the cameras, and of course, all of our live stewards next door to us. Welcome, everyone.
Yes, hello everybody. It's good to see everybody here today. So as you can see, we're following on Christopher Verstappen as going through his first lap here onto the iconic Monza circuit. With this track having lots of different kinds of winners and gone through various changes throughout its lifetime, it's certainly been known as the Speed Dome here in Italy. As we go around towards the parabolic, the final corner here, we can see with Verstappen, he's just trying to get this best hook on the inside line, try and make sure he can maximize the speed on the exit. Let's just see where he's going to set the benchmark. As we see, sets the benchmark at 2-minute 2.640, so that will be the benchmark to beat by the other competitors here tonight. You got Lingard in here about half a second behind, with Andy Boardman 6 tenths behind as well. As the track has gone from fast to optimum in that middle of that the lap that Verstappen put down, it's definitely going to be some time to gain between the rest of the competition here.
Yeah, certainly time to gain indeed, Matt. Of course, no tyre warmers for the M2s, as we keep saying during the qualifying session throughout the season. Of course, it takes a good few laps to get the tyres to come into their magic window, of course, up to temperature and up to optimum pressure, as we see the RPMS boys here, maybe with some slipstreaming tactics here in qualifying. It's Daniel Crinzen chasing Tom Shipston just ahead. There should be 5 or 6 cars, I believe, although some of the RPMS members struck down with man flu, the official statement from some of them. So speed of recovery to everybody involved there, and hopefully Crinzen and, of course, Shipston can do you proud tonight, as we're seeing good gains from the front runners. Of course, Verstappen just going through the front of the shot there, followed by Andy Boardman being chased by one of the Sim Brothers entries. I think that's Christian Lindgren, if the roof number is not doing me dirty here. The number 48, as they come, of course, under the old banking, the tunnel on the back straightaway, of course, as they head down to the Ascaria chicane. And as you alluded to earlier on, Matt, of course, it's all about corner exit here at Monza. You've got such long straights as Andy Boardman exercising the track limits there through Ascari, pushing onto the limit. But it's all about, getting that run out of the corner as best you can and try and build up as much momentum before you hit the next braking zone.
Yeah, definitely, especially with a lot of these cars not having that much in the way of aerodynamic performance. Again, these guys have to fully rely on the mechanical grip of the BMWs here. As you can see, Andy Borman's going up to finish his lap. He is currently up on his time. Will it be enough to get towards a position? Yes, it does. He's still 3 tenths off from Verstappen's best time, but it's with these guys still getting their tires in, still trying to get them warmed up, and maybe even trying to get a toe the right place. They might see they get able to get full advantage. See Shipston also going around. He's up on his time. Let's see where he ends up getting on to the point. Gets another position on Hughes. That gets him up to 6 tenths off from Verstappen's time. So a lot of people are starting getting their times up now. So with 8 minutes to go, we're going to see, I think we're going to see a lot more of the times going down, I would say.
Yeah, time's coming in thick and fast here. Nicholas Nordquist, one of the early pitters, already back to the pit lane for a fresh set of Pirellis. Maybe a few setup tweaks, of course. Track temperature here very low as Rob Franken across the line. P8 immediately shuffled down to P9 to P10 as other drivers begin to improve, one of which Klaus Nyring up onto the front row of the grid. 202.665 for the Danish driver, and he's going to want to try and solidify himself that little bit more. Of course, Andy Boardman 3 tenths behind. Les Stevenson coming through at the moment. P16 across the line towards the front row. He shall go as well with a 203.012. And Matt, in practice, me, Jesse, and yourself were both watching Les, and he is up there in the pace today. He even managed to provisionally put it into first place during practice before being shuffled back down once again.
Yeah, well, it might have not been for long, but it certainly shows that he is going to be in the running if he can get that lap done right. See him currently P4, 3 tenths off. There's still plenty of time on the board for him to get. You can see Verstappen's onto his another lap here. He is up on his time by quite a sizable margin from the looks of it. So he's able to hold on for the final corner here and maximize the traction on the outside. Try and get that speed down. He's going to get himself a massive gap between the rest of the competition here as he goes to finish on his lap. He does it. He gets himself another 3 tenths on that time there, giving himself a nice good buffer there. We've got Andy Borman on here. Doesn't look like he's improved much on his time. I was told by Jesse he's improved his time, but not by much. So again, half a second off from Verstappen. So it's going to be quite a challenging one with some of the guys if they're not able to get their times in closer to where he is.
Yeah, rarity on your screens as well. Tom Shipston, BMW indicator flashing. I wasn't aware these cars actually had indicators, but Tom Shipston up into the second row of the grid in the number 60, just ahead of Les Stevenson. We've got a very small margin between those guys as well. Christopher Streppen, though, currently setting the pace at 202.3 at the head of the field. Just under 6 minutes to go. Lots of drivers still seeking improvement. Victor Nordquist up 2 positions, just ahead of Sebastian Brunier there, who currently sits in the pit lane. Currently, lots of invalid laps going on, so drivers really trying to push the limits, try and exercise where, of course, the M2s are strong, where you can really kind of lean on the brakes more than you expect. Of course, got to carry the speed through the corners, be careful of the anti-cut curbs through the second chicane, because that can really hamper your pace if you use those a little bit too much. Of course, Ascari with the weight transfer, again, easy to lose momentum. So lots of time loss. It's a very simple circuit on the face of it here at Monza. Of course, big, long, straight, heavy braking zone, chicane, another big, long, straight, heavy braking zone, chicane, couple of right-handers, the Ascari chicane, another long straight, and then a banked kind of right-hander to finish off the lap. So relatively simple, Matt, although relatively easy to get wrong. And sometimes when it does go wrong, it can be quite big here at the Temple of Speed.
Yeah, and I think it's definitely one of those tracks. It's a prime example. It's easy to learn, but hard to master. I mean, with these cars as well, lacking that aerodynamic grip, lacking the same amount of power as well, it's a matter of just trying to master the brakes here, because with these TCX cars, they're not really great on if you try and turn under brake. And you can see with Mike Redford here going through the Ascari chicanes, kept it nice and clean. He's still able to keep that going, but you can see there it completely unsettles the cars. It throws him into there, but he's still valid, so he's still got plenty of time to gain if he can able to push the car any further. But again, from that, it's only going to give him a small up advantage onto there. So as he goes through the final corner here, he's going to have to try and see if he can get any more gains onto there, see if he can push himself up to the next positions up. Again, the gap between him and the people ahead of him, but with Brian and Ricato, it's not that big of a difference. So if he's able to get across there and get from there, yep, he got past him. So 1.3 seconds off the gap. So it's quite a big gap between the top 10, I would want to say.
Yeah, certainly more spread out than what we've seen, of course, at a couple of previous rounds. Of course, margins a little bit bigger here tonight. Of course, you've got 3/10 between Verstappen and Nyring towards the front. You've got another 2/10 roughly back to Andy Boardman. Another 2/10 back to Tom Shipston, who's got Les Stevenson literally chomping at his rear bumper. 1/10 back to Lindgren. Another 2 back to Huel. So top 7 covered by a second. And of course, it doesn't sound like a lot a second, but I mean, in terms of Monza and the M2, everybody in the same car, it can be really hard to find that kind of ultimate lap time, of course, that you could maybe quite easily find in a less forgiving car such as the GT3 machinery, as you alluded to earlier, Matt. Of course, aerodynamics very lacking in this car, and electronic systems such as ABS and TC, of course, set up to be on the kind of safer side of things for the beginner entry into GT racing, which is of course what the M2 is almost designed to be. It's a good stepping stone there as they come through the Ascari chicane. Peter Varga using all of the inside curb, jumping over the anti-cut curb somewhat as they come down towards the final corner, of course, of the Curva Parabolica, turn 11. There's a Sim Brothers entry just in the background there. I'm not sure which one that is. Possibly one of the longer numbered cars. Just scanning the board to see if I can work that out, but not too sure. Probably one of the Nordquists, I would say. Maybe even a Lundqvist. You've got a safe bet mentioning those two names, of course. 2 of them each in the race as Peter Varga for Team Monkey Racing comes towards the line, seeking a small improvement. He's up, but not enough to advance his position ahead of Philip Rehart. Just ahead, of course, about 3/10 on that one. Martin Lawrence, a late improvement, Matt. He was just sat ahead of Mike Redford. He's since found some pace, forwards himself up to the second row of the grid, just ahead of Andy Boardman by a very small margin. So a couple more cars coming in to that kind of small margin mark that we're used to seeing from the previous rounds.
Yeah, I wouldn't knock him out. I wouldn't knock him out just yet. He's definitely a driver that's a lot that is very good on just finding the right time in the right place. You saw there, it looked really wide, but you saw he gained a good tenth on that corner there. So he's able to find a little bit more time than say what some of the other people aren't able to achieve. You can see go through the Ascari. He's got to try and make sure he doesn't unsettle the car too much. But I gotta say, it's like with these T6 cars, these TCX cars don't really sound too noisy at all. It's like when I'm listening here in the booth, it's like you don't really hear the noise of these cars at all unless you're really up to them.
Yeah, it's quite a quiet car, of course, here tonight. Not used to the GT3 machinery that we're used to screaming around the Temple of Speed. But Martin Lawrence around the Parabolica, he goes towards the start-finish line. And the number 171 RCI Esports entry, seeking another improvement across the line. It's a good improvement, but still not enough to pop himself forward on the grid. Just under 30 seconds to go. Lawrence will go for another lap. Klaus Nyring's going to be cutting it fine to go for one more. That is, of course, if he has the fuel. Christopher Verstappen ahead of him as well in the white kind of factory M-coloured car. Yellow Orcs light across the roof, so that's going to be quite easy to pick out in the race. Apparently losing a bit of time is Nyring as he comes out of Ascari. Didn't make the best of exits, and he's going to have to try and make it up all now in the Parabolica. Not too early on the power, but equally not too late, because then you're going to find yourself slow out onto the main straight, and he cans the lap there, pulls into the pit lane for Verstappen ahead as well. So, of course, drivers here, Matt, although we're used to seeing them, you know, stop at the side of the road, hit the escape button, return to garage straight away, these drivers being quite sensible towards the end of the qualifying session and pulling into the pit lane to practice that pit stop entry that they're going to have to do in the 1 hour race. As Sebastian Brunier comes through the Parabolica up on his time, we're being told by Jesse Lee at the moment. Coming towards the line, the 668 nearly on pace driver. Will it be enough to forward himself forward? And it is! Up into P10, Sebastian Brunier just ahead of Mike Redford, just behind Stefano Ricciardo. So that's going to be, looking at those times, Matt, a very interesting area to watch, kind of just outside the top 10.
Yeah, it's definitely. It's with everybody else being very close to each other within just a couple of tenths between P9 and all the way down to P16. Again, it's going to be very competitive in the midfield here. Like we saw last week with the Red Bull Ring, we saw that four-way fight between the RPMS and the Sim Brother cars. So there's going to be a lot. As Jesse was saying to me, that Martin Lawrence is getting very close to that pole time. He's going through Parabolica. The time's there. It's almost half a second up, so he might get it over towards pole position. As he go across the line, he gets pole position by 300ths of a second. That was an absolute banger lap from Martin Lawrence, dominating through the middle sector as well. So he's managed to find a good amount of time somewhere in the middle or the first sector from that point.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Matt, looking at the sector times there, Martin Lawrence and Christopher Streppen there, both with the exact same first sector. The odds of that happening probably very, very slim in the racing world. Sector 2, of course, Lawrence fastest through there, and Sector 3, just a very small loss against Chris. So it was all done in that middle sector. So Martin Lawrence will be your pole sitter for today's race, followed by Christopher Streppen, Klaus Naring, and Andy Boardman in hot pursuit. Tom Shipston and Les Stevenson, followed by Christian Lindgren, Raphael Huell, Stefano Ricciardo, and French driver Sebastien Brunier just inside the top 10. Mike Redford, we then got the Alphonse Lundqvist, the first of them, followed by Rob Franken, Matthias Byron, followed by another Sim Brothers realm of Peter Lundqvist and Nicholas Nordqvist. Daniel Crinzen, followed by Callum Kerrigan, and that's another of the Nordqvist, this time Victor. We then got Kalyanov in P20, Kevin Boss sneaking just inside there, 21st, Philip Reha in 22nd, and Philip Varga will round out today's grid, P22 there. Of course, 30 drivers signed up for the championship, 23 here with us tonight, and it's of course that time when we take a look at the championship standings. And as we alluded to in the entry to the broadcast, of course, it's very close at the top between, of course, all of the front row drivers, near enough. Raphael Huell down in P8, so he's going to have some gains to do today. Martin Lawrence at the top of the board with 113 points, followed by Klaus Naring on 110. Christopher Streppen followed very closely by Raphael Huell just inside the top 4. We then got Christian Lindgren with Les Stevenson and Tom Shipston both tied on points at this current stage. Andy Boardman in P8, of course, after a not so ideal Red Bull Ring. Rob Franken follows in P9 and Mike Redford in P10. Rounds out, of course, the top 10 in Pro. There is only one class in the TCX, so no Silvers and Pros and AMs. It's all everybody lumped into one. So Callum Kerrigan tied with Richard Phillips. Again, RPMS driver not here tonight, so Kerrigan's going to try and extend that lead. Matthias Byron, followed by Alphonse Lundqvist. The battle of the Sim brothers getting involved joint in the championship near enough. Stefano Ricciardo, followed by Yao Manzo, just a point between them. And then Martin Foster, 2 points down from Ricciardo. Nicholas Nordqvist on 25, tied with Matt Stevens. So Sim Brothers versus RPMS happening towards the back end of the top 20. And Peter Varga sneaks inside the top 20 with 24 points. And moving on, of course, to page 3, Peter Lundqvist on 24, Sebastian Brunier on 20 after a game crash from the Red Bull Ring. Fingers crossed, a lot more better luck for Sebastian tonight. Victor Nordqvist on 15, Philip Reha on 10, Kalyanov on 6, and of course Daniel Crinzen and Kevin Boss yet to score. I believe this is their first round in attendance. and a couple of drivers there towards the bottom have signed out and will take no further part, of course, indicated by the hyphen where their points will sit. So lots of competitiveness tonight, Matt. Of course, we've got a very stacked field in terms of talent towards the front end. Lots of RCI Monday regulars, but Raphael Huell, P4 in the championship, but P8 on the grid. He's going to be one driver probably to keep your eye on as he tries to make his way towards the front.
Yeah, I wouldn't put it against him for it. Again, he can make the charge when it needs to be done, but with a track like this, you just gotta have to be careful you don't get yourself into the train, and most notably the turn one here. So with that, with the race starting going down the turn one, it is the most notorious place for incidents. I would say at its peak here in ACC. Anywhere you look at, that's probably the worst place you'll be at. Many people misjudge the braking points. Some people might get caught out by some of the other people braking early. Again, it really depends on how turn one goes. But hopefully their key drivers will keep it nice and clean for tonight, because after all, we've got our lovely live stewards here next door to us. So they're going to be the ones that are going to be keeping an eye on what's going to happen with turn one.
Yeah, of course, live stewards casting their BDI over the antics of today's race. And just want to slip into the broadcast before we get underway on the formation lap. LFM Sunday ACC Drive Endurance Race, clean turn one, and that was in the wet. So that was very, very surprising, even for me, watching Jordan Daly navigate the Bentley around. So if 45-something cars can get through, certainly I'm sure we can get 23 M2s through. But as you said, Matt, of course, cold brakes, cold tyres might catch drivers out. Of course, the heavier fuel load that some drivers may be on compared to others. Again, some drivers tend to be more cautious, some tend to be a little bit more aggressive, as Jesse Lee provides us some fantastic shots of all the M2s leaving their grid slots. Lots of colourful liveries in the field, and of course all of the regular colours you'd expect to see from the Sim Brothers and RPMS. Of course, Callum Kerrigan and Les Stevenson also sharing a livery, and that's a very stark different Monza to what we're seeing currently there on the live TV, but nonetheless fantastic pictures being brought to us as always from Jesse Lee. Of course, the live stewards next door to us as well. We thank them very much for giving up their evening to of course cast their eyes over the antics here. Of course, RCI calendar this week looking relatively busy. Wednesdays, of course, is when we head iRacing as we bring you the multi-class sprint season 1, featuring, of course, LMP3 and GT4 cars. And we're visiting some interesting tracks for some chaotic racing this week, of course, last week, sorry. Heading to Monza, where we are tonight. This week, though, drivers heading to round 4 at Laguna Seca. And of course, Saturday, we're back to ACC with Night Owl Season 17. That's heading to round 2. Again, where we are tonight, Monza. So I'm seeing a bit of a pattern emerging in some of these calendars. Martin Lawrence storming the competition Saturday evening to a commanding victory over Jordan Daly and Joe Dorber in Pro. And down in silver, it was a Czech lockout with Philip Rieher taking victory over Masatoshi Kaneko and Fabio Greiner as well. So you do want to get involved in that one, head on over to the website racerci.com, where you can of course get involved in all of our races anytime, of course day or night. Pre-qualify if needed as well, and all the rules will be set out very nicely indeed. Of course, not forgetting the RCI 6-hour series, of course hosting the esports and community leg, and for the first time in RCI history, of course, prizes on the table in the community leg. So if you do fancy your chances there, that could be one for you. Of course, we're already one round in. Next round, we're of course heading to Silverstone for the IMB 6 hours of Silverstone there, even a title sponsor on round 2. So great to see RCI, of course, progressing through. And of course, it wouldn't be possible without you guys at home, whether you've been involved with us from the beginning, you're a late joiner, or you're just here for the broadcasts and all the antics we get up to here on RCI TV. We thank each and every one of you for making it what we can. And Peter Varga, I think they're exercising some initial D tactics, Matt, on the formation lap.
Yeah, certainly. It's a little bit of drifting, I would want to say, like you're taking out some lessons from initial Ds, but again, I don't think that'll be very helpful. Yeah, I think it'll be a bit of a deja vu here. So again, as I wouldn't really put it against them. I hope they can work out well going for the remainder of the race.
Absolutely so. And 23 cars, of course, all heading towards the Parabolica. Drivers are, of course, trying to build as much temperature in the tyres as possible. Les Stevenson being one of them, getting a real arm workout as he comes down to the Parabolica. Of course, we got lots of big names in the field. Lawrence and Verstappen, of course, teammates in the RCI esports camp. Will we see a bit of friendly fire between them as they get their elbows out in a Monday night race? Of course, Klaus Naring just behind, wants to capitalize on that one. Andy Boardman alongside him, Tom Shipston, Les Stevenson, dark horses in this race, of course. Maybe even Christian Lindgren lurking just behind there as well. So lots of big names towards the field, of course. Brakes being dragged as they come up towards the line, waiting for the green flag, and we are underway. Verstappen on the outside already looks like he's got a good run. Nyring and Boardman in the background equal though, and Verstappen already has the overlap onto Lawrence, but it's going to be the last of the late breakers as they head down into the first chicane. The Variante del Rettifilio, of course, the inside becomes the outside. Everybody squeezing the brake, checking up in the background. Of course, the pinch point comes at the back of the field when everybody is scrubbing off speed for the concertina effect as they head through the right-left sequence. And everybody, touch wood, has made it through the first chicane. However, we have the Curva Grande to come out. Of course, Verstappen has got the jump on Lawrence as they head towards the Variante del Roggia up next. It's another pinch point. It's another kind of concertina effect on the brakes, and you've really got to be heads up as you head into here. Drivers, of course, attempting to take some real estate. That's Callum Kerrigan with a big dive, I think, on Rob Franken. Elbows out already. He's made his way through up into P15. Callum Kerrigan goes towards the Lesmos with some breathing space ahead of him. Meanwhile, Rob Franken holding up Daniel Crimson. So the number 280 is going to try and stretch his legs away from his nearest rival. Raphael Kuhl losing a spot out on the start. Sebastian Brunier up a position as well. I think he was just outside or just inside the top 10. A good gain there from the nearly on pace driver, but Raphael Kuhl under the tunnel towards the Ascari chicane. They will go. Kuhl on the inside, of course. That will become the outside once they get through the long sweeping right, and very sensibly, I think Kuhl a bit cautious at the start of this race, not wanting to, of course, feel the wrath of the stewards. Drivers already wide as they come through the Ascari chicane. That's Tom Shipston ahead there in the RPMS car. Pink auxiliary lights down the windscreen make that one very easy to identify for us up here in the booth. But heading into the Parabolica, it is Christopher Streppen that leads lap one from Martin Lawrence, followed by Andy Boardman. Klaus Nyring is sniffing at the back bumper of Boardman, wanting to get the slipstream already down into the first chicane. Side by side they will go, and in the background Christian Lindgren coming under pressure from Les Stevenson. But Matt, look to the right hand side. Every driver looks like they've made it through a lap at Monza.
Yeah, it was very clean. I think you just jinxed it there. As you can see, one of the cars goes off ahead. Is that? I'm not sure who that is. I think that was Verstappen, the 747 that might have gone straight ahead.
It was Lawrence, I think.
Or was it Lawrence, actually? Yeah, Martin Lawrence. So, again, you just jinxed it at just the wrong time. So a little bit of door banging from the looks of it. So he has to go and take those chicane bits there, so that way he doesn't get a track penalty on from that. So again, I don't know if we just saw the very end of that incident there, but he's lost a lot of places there, so he has to build up that momentum again and start charging through the rest of the field. Andy Boardman's still on the back of Christian Nyring as well, so Nyring managed to get through, but so it's just, again, for Klaus, he just needs to hold it off. It's a bit of a slide there on the rear end. We've seen with Boardman still on the very back bumper of Nyring, so it's about trying to maximize the toe, try and make sure you can get past at the right time. But again, with these brakes here, you might be the last one on the brakes, but if you do go, if you're too fast on the brakes, then you might go a little bit too wide.
Yeah, prime example from Martin Lawrence heading into turn one. Tried to outbrake Christopher Streppen and just couldn't get it done, unfortunately. Now we've got Callum Kerrigan being breathed over by Kevin Boss in the background. Kalyanov getting involved as well as Peter Lundqvist. Up the inside goes Kevin Boss. There's a bit of a bobble on the chicane, but manages to get ahead of Callum Kerrigan, the Wheelie Slow Racing Team, up into P16. Drivers are darting left and right, coming out the Ascari chicane, trying to find any piece of real estate they can. 2, 4, 6, 7 cars in a row, and this is essentially for 16 at the head of all of this as they come down into the Parabolica. Callum Kerrigan towards the inside, a bit up the curb there, a bobble into Kalyanov's car. Kerrigan sideways, he's got it under control, back onto the racing line. Car scatter. Peter Varga manages to avoid it. One of the Sim Brothers entry, I think that's Peter Lundqvist, over the giant yellow sausage curb on the outside of Parabolica as sparks flew as drivers managed to get it through. But 3 wide here, Peter Varga splitting the Sim Brothers entry down into turn 1. This is Lundqvist and Nordqvist either side of him, and I think Peter Varga has seen sense, backed out a little bit, but Philip Rieher has now found some real estate up the inside. The inside becomes the outside. Rieher gets a better drive off the corner, and Varga now finds himself under pressure from Callum Kerrigan as the Sim Brothers lock into flying formation just ahead to try and pull away from these guys that are now beginning to squabble. But that was a very, very mad Parabolica, and somewhere along the line Daniel Crinzen has unfortunately lost the back of the pack. There he is, just coming through the curve of Grande. He is the kind of the back of the pack, as we say. So definitely a big time loss there for the 808.
Yeah, definitely. I wouldn't put against it, because again, it's about keeping the momentum. It's about keeping those tires nice and hot. And as you go through there, as we go look at a replay with Victor Nordqvist going through turn 1, oh, he's just hit the back of Crinton. So we can see why Crinton's at the back of the grid. But again, it's just unfortunate. It's like I said, if you're last on the brakes, maybe sometimes you might just be going a bit too far forward. As we go back onto Mike Redford here, he's managed to jump himself up to P9 now at the back of Ricato. Oh, he just got launched off. Commentator curse, isn't it, John?
Absolutely. You literally couldn't commentate a curse that better if we tried. Jesse Lee flicks to him, big moment over the curb, a little bit too greedy on the inside, caught it, and then of course the car snapped back the other way really hard into the outside wall at Ascari. That's going to be big front end damage. You can see there trying to feel the steering out as he gets back onto the racing line. Cars having to take avoiding action, but here we go. We've got flying formation this time of the Sim Brothers. Once again, Lundqvist, Nordqvist, and Byron now all in a line, and it's a little bit of inter-team rivalry as Nicholas Nordqvist looks to the outside. Of course, Ricciardo ahead's going to be watching his mirror, hoping he doesn't get speared by one of these Sim Brothers cars coming into the first chicane. Nordqvist swoops around the outside of Lundqvist, and Byron manages to catch the back as well on the exit. So, of course, it's a momentum-based game here at Monza. You can already see Nicholas Nordqvist with a much better run out of the first chicane. That draws Alphonse Lundqvist back a little bit into the claws, of course, of Matthias Byron. And just behind, Rob Franken's rubbing his hands with glee, thinking, I could find myself an M2-sized hole during this fight, or better still, if these guys come together, which they nearly do in the second chicane, over the curb, and there's contact. Rob Franken now gets turned, and Alphonse Lundqvist gets back underway. And I think, Matt, we should just stop talking about drivers tonight, because I think that's the second or third commentator's curse that we've managed to pull off this time. Rob Franken slips down into P17, and as we said earlier on in the broadcast, be very careful on the sausage curves, because that is exactly what can happen. Unfortunately, Alphonse Lundqvist a bit too greedy on the second curb, trying to avoid his teammate. Bounced as Rob Franken came around the outside, and into the quarter panel he went. Very unfortunate indeed, but I think we should just maybe mute our mics in the box for a little while and let these guys have their own race, and hopefully nothing will happen for a little while.
Yeah, definitely. It's one of those things where sometimes we just catch the action at the exact right time, sometimes we just miss it. But yeah, it's been a bit of a kind of a messy couple corners, but again, at the front, still relatively clean. Verstappen has managed to pull himself a 1.6 second gap over to Nyring, so I think he's got it quite comfortably in the bag if he can keep on to holding it. But again, I don't want to commentate curse this one, because I've done it for Redford, you've done it for somebody else. So if we go back to Martin Lawrence on here, it's a little bit door bang on there. Oh, it looks like it slid on his own, and looks like it just caught one of the Sim Brother cars from the looks of it. Yeah, absolutely.
Looks like possibly a zero TC scenario as Lawrence gets over the curb. Kind of watch here, he gets over the curb, tries to gas it up a little bit on the outside and just kind of spins it. The number 48 Christian Lindgren unfortunately collecting him across the front there, and both drivers back underway. Christian Lindgren is ahead of Lawrence. So kind of no harm, no foul in terms of position, but of course a big time loss in the grand scheme of things, and not the ideal thing, of course, for your pole sitter Martin Lawrence. Meanwhile, Rob Franken begins his onslaught back onto the Sim brothers. Of course, Peter Lundqvist to his right-hand side, and I think that's Victor Nordqvist in the background as well, trying to get involved. And it's almost a one-for-one here as Sim brothers over the inside curve. Once again, Rob Franken finding more damage down the right-hand side of that M2. There's going to be a few wings and doors raided from the BMW factory after tonight's round, I can feel.
Yeah, definitely. Lots of door banging, lots of little bit of contacts here and there. So I think a lot of it is just from the car being upset from going over these sausage curbs, going over these bumps in terms because again, these cars are more spec towards the road legal status. So and they're within being more representative of the real life road car, they're not going to be very good on suspension. There's only very much you can do on these. As there's a slam in the back, took out Nordqvist. So that's both the Sim brother cars. Got taken out by one of the other BMWs. I can't remember, couldn't see what that was, whether it was Franken or was one of the other ones. I do know was, as we could take a quick replay of that, as you see Peter Lundqvist at the going on there. He hits the back and then hits the other one. So that's both the Sim brother cars smacked off there. It's quite unfortunate, really, when not just one of your own team members, but both team members that are in the race get knocked out like that.
Absolutely. So Rob Franken going bowling with the Sim brothers here tonight. Kevin Boss, meanwhile, getting involved as well. That's into the back of Kalyanov, I believe. No, Kalyanov actually into the back of Kevin Boss as he goes for an excursion across the gravel. Bumpy, back on Kevin Boss goes and gets it back underway. Meanwhile, with a move into the first turn, that's a BMW not stopping. That looks like Riha possibly going straight on towards the escape road, much as Martin Lawrence did just a few laps ago. And it is polystyrene flying everywhere. You can just get the feeling watching a car coming into turn one, you just know it's too much speed carried through, and Riha there having to slow up, of course, to avoid the track cut warning and filter back in, of course, where he once left the circuit. But it's always that scary moment, isn't it, Matt, when you check your mirror coming into turn one and all of a sudden you see a car barreling in at kind of twice the rate. And in the background, that's Peter Varga. I think, I could be completely wrong, but absolutely firing the car through the second chicane. I'm not sure what happened there, Matt. Let's get a race replay and have a look. Takes avoiding action, gives it the old Scandi flick, splits between Kerrigan and I'm not sure who that is ahead of him. Maybe Riha? Philip Riha and Kerrigan somehow splitting the two. I'm not sure what's going on here with Peter Varga, but very, very good avoidance, Matt.
I would definitely hold my breath for that. That could have been a very scary moment there for a lot of these drivers here. As we go back onto Peter Lundqvist, still at the back of the Kerrigan. But again, as we go to Crimson as well, there's a little bit of a bump there, a little bit of sparks coming from Varga. Again, these cars are super unstable if you upset the car at all. So I wouldn't put it against them with some of them simply not reacting well enough to the car's instabilities. As we go back to Franken over the Parabolica, he's going to try and see if he can get the full on tow. He's got a better run up than, say, of the likes of the 31 of Kevin Boss. Still side by side, but looks like that Franken has a better run on the Parabolica, given that straight line speed. But Kevin Boss is still in the back of them, trying to go use the tow. But again, you have to watch turn one, because again, if you're last on the brakes, you could be too late on them. You could just dive straight forward, as we've seen quite a lot of cars do tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. So plenty of mistakes on the brakes, of course, as we alluded to earlier in the broadcast. The ABS system here not kind of tailored towards like trail braking like we normally see in the GT3 cars. Of course, aero levels a lot lower, as we see Kerrigan on Riha here going down into the first chicane. Of course, Kerrigan on the inside line, one of the Sim Brothers cars in the background there closing up. I think that's one of the Lundqvists, Peter possibly. The outside, of course, becoming the inside. Riha over the inside curb gets worse traction out of the corner, and Callum Kerrigan, of course, prevailing in this one. But of course, the slipstream not to be sniffed at here through the Monza. As we've got a yellow flag out. That's for the number 60. That's Tom Shipston coming out of Lesmo 2. Wonder if we can get a race replay. He's in the outside
it's
wall,
return to
straight
garage.
back to the pit lane. Let's have a look what happened here. This is going to be a long replay. So we're going all the way back to the Curva Grande here. That's Raphael Kuhl in the background, just ahead. Of course, we got Les Stevenson in the number 46 through the second chicane. Lovely on board here. Ignore the rearview mirror. That's, of course, live pictures coming from the server. It always confuses everybody in the realm of ACC. Raphael Kuhl having a little sniff down into Lesmo 1. Tom Shipston holding his line, getting through the corner nice and safely. Kuhl a little bit wide here, coming into Lesmo 2. On the brakes, just about where you expect them. Comes out of the corner, a little bit too much into the grass, hard into the wall to driver's right. And then I think he's tried to get it back underway, got over to the left-hand side, and then realized probably how much damage there was on the M2. It's always a nightmare, isn't it, Matt? Especially in these solo races, it's really hard to find that gap in traffic. You can already see there the car doesn't turn, almost has to Austin Powers it, kind of 69-point turn to get it back underway once again. But it's always tricky in these solo events. Of course, in the endurance races, you have team members, with you normally to spot the traffic. But solo events, it's very, very hard to find that gap in the traffic.
Oh, definitely, it certainly is. And I want to say that was actually a great reference you put onto there. There's not many people that say that, but again, it's all about trying to keep the car stable, trying to keep it on from there. Because again, with a lot of these cars on here, it's just there's just too much instability. If you get upset the car a lot, you can see with a little bit squarely on the other car, but he's managed to get ahead of Martin Lawrence. Seems to find a nice able gap to squeeze through. So some of the drivers are able to find those gaps and kind of squeeze through them, but some of them are having troubles with it. And again, it's leading to them to having incidents like these.
Absolutely, so I couldn't agree more. And Jesse Lee in my ears, currently diverting my attention to the YouTube chat. Of course, Ash Bibby with the £5 donation. Thank you very much, Ash. We hope to see you back with us very soon on your broadcasting duties. But John must uwu like he means it. And if anybody knows me, I don't uwu. So uwu. That's for you there, Ash. Enjoy that one as we get back to the action. Nicholas Nordquist parked across the road. Peter Varga into the door very hard indeed. That's Nicholas Nordquist off to the right-hand side. Other drivers finding their way through. Victor Nordquist being one of them. Redford managed to escape. I think Crimson's got involved there with the bonnet propped up slightly on that car. And the 137, Nicholas Nordquist, back to the pit lane there. Joins Tom Shipston in the realm of the pit lane. The 508 has also vacated the server. Meanwhile, Lawrence on his crusade back to the front finds himself with Ricciardo to deal with down into the first chicane. Of course, last of the late breakers. Lawrence gets the edge much later on the brakes. Has to take avoiding action over the speed humps and the weird bounce as he comes out the other side. Will Lawrence give back the position? I'm sure he will. Of course, a slight lift there allows Ricciardo back through, and the battle will resume once more. So the honourable thing there from Martin Lawrence on that one. I've had a comment from Mikael Sundstrom in my DMs, actually giving me a phrase for tonight's race, Matt. He's going with polystyrene pandemonium. Probably with the amount of polystyrene scattered through turn one, with drivers, of course, missing their braking points.
Yeah, definitely. Again, I've said this so many times already tonight, and I think I'll say it once more. If you're last on the brakes, just be sure you're not braking far too late here. Again, you can see with like a lot of these cars here tonight, they're trying their hardest. They're trying to get to the point where they're trying to get the maximized amount of points here, but some of them are just trying to get the car in a bit too much to what the car is capable of. You can see at the back of Callum Kerrigan's car, you got the other Sith, you got Peter Lundqvist right behind him on there, trying to chase him down for that precious P14 place. But again, it's all points that matter at the end of the day, like you can see there. But Peter Lundqvist is slowly catching up, going through towards the Scar chicane. He's looking towards the inside line, is whether or not he's going to try and outbrake Kerrigan, but he's backed off. He's gonna have to play it safe for another turn there. And I think it's probably the better option to do it. I think it's better just to play it safe and let other people make the mistakes.
Yeah, absolutely. So sometimes you can almost force a driver, can't you, into the kind of last of the late breakers game. Like you say, if you're, last on the brakes, have you braked too late? You can almost trick I used to like doing is braking slightly early, making the driver think he's missed his braking point, slam on. As he slams on, lift off the brake, and you go sailing past him into the apex. So it doesn't work so much these days. A lot of drivers are quite wise to it, but back in the day, it definitely used to work for myself. Callum Kerrigan, though, sizing up a move on Kevin Boss into the slipstream of the Wheelie Slow Racing team. He shall go riding on board, of course. You can almost not even see a gap between Kerrigan and Boss as Kerrigan pulls out to the left-hand side. The last of the late breakers. They draw alongside, going into the first chicane. Of course, the outside becomes the inside. There's contact. Kerrigan tries to check up, and there's a concertina effect behind. That's Lundqvist. Riha goes scattering, and maybe even one of the Nordqvist brothers coming through as well on that race. And Martin Foster in our YouTube chat actually saying that it's a bad day if your name ends in ist, and that's quite a few drivers on the grid, and I think he's certainly proved the point, because there's certainly been a few calamities for the Nordqvists and the Lundqvists in today's race. But let's take another look at that one. Into turn one we go once again. Of course, Kevin Boss and Callum Kerrigan. Concertina effect, of course. Kerrigan into the back of Boss, tries to check up. One of the Lundqvists gets involved there, and I think Philip Riha finds his way through the calamities as well. So it's a bit of a strange one happening at the moment, but pit window is open. Of course, we do have a mandatory stop here tonight. Fixed refueling time. Drivers have to add 1 litre of fuel into the car, and it's going to be 25 seconds, whether you add the 1 litre, 10, 20, 30, however you want to split down this race. Still going to be stationary for 25 seconds. Of course, tyres then adding on an additional 5 seconds, and being Monza, not too reliant on the tyres here, Matt, speaking from previous races. You know, in the past, you can gain a lot in the middle sector, of course, through the Lesmos with a fresh set of tyres, but the 5 seconds you lose, I don't think it's going to be worth taking tyres tonight.
No, I definitely don't think it is either, especially with this much incidents going about. Yeah, a carnage, as Jesse might put it onto it, but it's about managing. It's about managing the traffic. It's about trying to manage where would we be best to gain the time. And I just think that for tonight, at least, it's about the pit stops. I mean, you've got people making mistakes up ahead and behind you as well, so it's trying to maximize the amount of time to get yourself into a nice clean gap, trying to get the time in, so then that way you've got nobody else that might make a mistake. As you can see, go towards the back of Franken. He's trying to swoop on the inside, on the outside as well, trying to go the last on the braking here on Kevin Boss, but he doesn't go for it just yet, hoping to see if he can get them on the next chicane here. But again, he's got those 2 cars behind him as well, so he's got the RPMS and Kerrigan behind it as well. So it's all about trying to maximize the strategy, I want to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Strategy, of course, going to be a key thing in tonight's race, and whether or not you're in a pack of traffic and you're trying to escape a rival, maybe. Les Stevenson at the moment behind Andy Boardman. Of course, these guys running very similar lap times. Could Les benefit from pitting early, getting himself out of that kind of back end of Andy Boardman's BMW M2 ahead, and find himself in a kind of better, kind of open area of traffic where he can really drill in the lap times relatively unfazed, of course. Although there's not too much aero grip, of course, there is still dirty air involved with the BMW M2 CS. So again, that's another factor to bear in mind as you come through the high load corners of Scari, Parabolica. Of course, you're going to be losing a lot of grip sat in the dirty air ahead, but Les Stevenson still prevailing, still behind Andy Boardman. It's the closest gap we've got currently inside the top 5. Christoph Verstappen nearly 4.5 seconds clear of Klaus Nyring. Klaus Nyring equally nearly the same time away from Andy Boardman as well. So this battle here is the highest rated one we have on your screens. And of course, Raphael Kuehl in the background, Matt, he could maybe sneak into this fight. As we've seen in previous rounds, drivers begin to squabble, and 3 seconds dwindles away very quickly when you're doing what these guys are doing here, side by side through Parabolica. Rob Franken on the less than ideal high side. Of course, a big wiggle as he jumped on the power there. Kevin Boss to the right-hand side will prevail down the straight, and the slipstream battle remains once again. Rob Franken jinking out to the left-hand side, trying to get the overlap on the number 31 down to the first chicane. Again, the last of the late breakers. It's the famous phrase here tonight: who will be the bravest? Standing on the anchors, Kevin Boss to the inside over the curb. Be very careful. I think there's enough gap between the two. Very respectful racing there. Rob Franken prevails up into P15. Kevin Boss down to P16. But as I was saying, Matt, we've seen drivers squabble in the past, and 3 seconds will dwindle down very quickly once we start going side by side through numerous corners.
Yeah, definitely. As we start to see many of our drivers here putting in for their mandatory pit stops here, they're going to try and see whether or not they can get the edge over everybody else. You see Shipston just leaving the pit lane ahead of one of the other cars there. I'd say for the most part, I don't know whether or not you should go for a long game or go in as quick as you can. I know if I was in Les's position right now, I maybe want to box and maybe earlier than Boardman, try and get the undercut done towards the Boardman. So again, it really depends on how well they play the strategy, as Verstappen still is taking a very dominant lead right now. So as he's come up to his first laps of traffic just now, again, he just needs to be careful and make sure that the traffic doesn't impede him all too much. And I would just say that, because in the second he loses that momentum, like we saw with the Red Bull Ring, that 3 seconds there can dwindle down to 3/10 in a matter of half a lap if you're not careful.
Yeah, absolutely. So Christopher Streppen there navigating some traffic, and next in line to do the same will be Klaus Naring, currently holding the fastest lap of the race. Now, Matthias Byron on Sebastian Brunier down into the first corner. Byron to the inside. Brunier respectfully giving the space into the second half. There's a little bit of a nudge there. Byron manages to keep it under control as he heads towards the exit curb. A flash of the headlights towards Sebastian there proves his displeasure. And of course, in the background, Stefano Ricciardo looking to join into the duos fights. And you'll see, of course, a lot of penalties currently popping up on the left-hand side. Some drivers earning them before others, and we'll touch on that in a second once the stewards have caught up. It was a relatively calm lap one, and then it all began to kick off very quickly in the next few stages. This is Kalyanov and Tom Shipston. This is coming out of the second chicane. There's a big kind of forceful move there for Kalyanov, pushing Shipston over the gravel. You can see how fired up Shipston is. He is very fired up to try and unlap himself and get ahead of Kalyanov. Of course, Shipston back to the pit lane after the big accident he had coming out of Lesmo 2. Found his way towards the driver's right into the Armco and just couldn't get it turned around and back to the pits in time. Kalyanov overcooks the Parabolica though, and that's going to allow Shipston to unlap himself by this point. As we flick back, of course, Shipston there is ahead of Kalyanov. I think he was just a little bit too late on the brakes, of course. Found his way out to the outside line, and Shipston says, thank you very much. I will be having that position back from yourself. Stewards look like, I would say, they're relatively caught up on the incident, so we'll touch and cover on the most important ones at the moment. Lap 2, turn 1 involved the 19 and the 808. It was 10 seconds for the number 19 for avoidable contact. That was, of course, Victor Nordqvist as he came steaming in behind one of the RPMS drivers there, I think Daniel Crinzen, in the early stages, sending him for a spin. We then got a few no further actions, a few racing incidents, one even being deemed as hard racing in the description from our lovely live stewards. We then got lap 4, turn 6, this time involving the 75 and the 202. It's 10 seconds for the number 75. That was for Alphonse Lundqvist coming in here to the second chicane. This was involving Rob Franken over the inside. Of course, bounced into the door of Rob Franken there. So that was the penalty given on that one. We then got lap 5, turn 9, involving the 31 and the 63. It was a 5 seconds for the 63. That's Kalyanov. That's for avoidable contact, minor time loss on that one. I think Jesse queuing the replays here. This is on Kevin Boss into Ascari. Of course, we saw this on the broadcast. Kevin Boss going rally crossing through Ascari. Bouncy, bouncy. Back onto the road. Back under control goes Kevin Boss. We then got a long one here. Lap 5, turn 10. involving the 999, the 202, and the 19. It was a 15 seconds for the 202, who was deemed to react late to braking the cars ahead, causing avoidable contact with the 999. The 999 car is then unable to avoid further contact with the number 19, forcing significant time loss for the number 19 on that one. So that was, of course, given out to Rob Franken, who has just served his mandatory pit stop, which, of course, will add the 15-second penalty onto his overall timer. So instead of being stationary for 25 seconds, he'll, of course, be stationary for the extra 15 on top of that one. So 40 seconds in total for Rob Franken. Then the last time penalty we've got was for lap 7, turn 5, involving the 202, this man here, and the number 31. It was 10 seconds for avoidable contact on the number 31. That was, of course, Kevin Boss involved in this one. And Jesse Lee here bringing us the replay. Down into the second chicane they went. And into the back there goes Kevin Boss and Rob Franken, finding the fire marshal's escape road there into the second chicane, trying to reverse back onto the circuit. That was a very awkward rejoin we did miss on the broadcast, but we're all caught up on the stewards mat. It seems like commentator's curse has kind of worn off, I would say, at this point. Nobody has been involved, touch wood, touching the desk in front of me right now, involved in any incidences since. So stewards looking relatively together, but plenty of racing incidents, plenty of minor contacts, but also some quite significant time penalties involved there.
Yeah, definitely. See Martin Lawrence going against Christian Lingard and trying to find the inside line on through one of the curves here. He's not able to get through it just yet, but as I said to you before, I wouldn't jinx it just yet. See, Martin Lawrence is pulling back a bit just to try and keep it nice and safe between the two drivers here. Yeah, I'd just say we had a little bit of a messy start, but it seems as the race is going on, it's getting a lot more cleaner now, a lot more better as we go through the likes of the end of the race here. Still have about half an hour to go, so it's still a lot of time for these people to gain, a lot of positions to fight for. So it really sort of depends on Martin Lawrence being a bit bouncy over the Ascari chicane. So he needs to watch. I think he needs to watch it a little bit, because the second we turn on to him, he just seems to be bouncing a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely agree there with you there. Sorry, fumbling for the mute button here. Klaus Nyring coming into the pit lane. He's going to make his mandatory stop. So the first driver, essentially in finger quotations, in the front end of the grid to take his stop. So gonna have to see where he comes out in relative to everybody else. Hopefully not getting involved in too many fights that he doesn't need to. Of course, pit window open for another 8.5 minutes or so. We've got plenty of time still to come down the lane if you are one of these front runners. Christian Lindgren also electing to take his mandatory stop this lap along with Philip Rihar. And if you're new to watching us here at ACC and you're wondering what the timing tower on the left identifies, the orange number 1 indicates that a driver still has their mandatory stop to make, and anybody with a green box where the orange one is has cleared their pit stop. So they've met all the requirements that we set out in tonight's race, and they are free now to go towards the end of the race and take that checkered flag without having to stop again. We've got a race replay here. This is Sebastian Brunier with the number 100. That's Matthias Byron alongside him. Again, it's almost a one-to-one incident that we saw earlier on, isn't it? I think Jesse Lee actually confirming it was the same one from earlier on. I was going to say almost a mirror incident, but I wouldn't put it past a lot of drivers here at Monza. It's a very kind of textbook circuit where, of course, we get plenty of similar contacts and actions. That's Christian Lindgren rubbing with Martin Lawrence coming through Lesmo 2 there. So that was an interesting one. Maybe Les Stevenson, actually. No, I'm right. It was Lawrence. Jesse Lee causing confusion in our ears as always. But Klaus Nyring, the first driver on the road, of course, to take his mandatory pit stop. So indicates whereabouts you would come out. The number 23, of course, in some clear air at the moment, coming through Lesmo 1. Christopher Streppent will go through once more. He's probably got about 3 laps or so, Matt, I would say, before, of course, having his hand forced into the pit lane, and he's navigated some traffic to get where he is now. So it's surprising that Christopher Streppent didn't come in a lot sooner.
Yeah, definitely. Again, Maybe it's all about trying to keep out as long as you can. But there is about 6.5 minutes of the pit window, so there's still plenty of time. As you can see, Matthias Byron going into the pit lane just now. So yeah, again, it's all about trying to manage that strategy and try and see when exactly be the best time to pit in. So it's because again, you're gonna have to be staying static for the minimum of 25 seconds. So wherever you need the fuel, wherever you need the tires, it's all about trying to pick the right time for it. But it seems like Verstappen's found a really good spot to go against the traffic. So he hasn't got that many cars ahead of him, so he can keep going that little bit longer. But I just want to point out one of the guy at P3, our Les Stephenson, is actually in the podium for once. It's good to see one of the drivers who I've been racing for quite a while in that podium spot.
Yeah, absolutely. So Les Stevenson possibly finding his calling in the M2, should we say? Certainly mixing it towards the top end of the field. Of course, Andy Boardman 2 seconds or so ahead of him. Christopher Streppen, of course, in the race lead at the moment, as we see on your screens. As RPMS car very greedy on the curbs, a little bit sideways. Tom Shipstead still pushing on to try and undo the earlier on pit stop he was forced to take due to the accident. Of course, a couple of drivers still yet to take their clear their penalties, should we say. Of course, Kalyanov and Nordqvist had pitted before the penalties were given. So again, they will be added on to the end of the race time. So again, that's something to factor in with Nordqvist. Of course, Rob Franken 9.1 seconds behind. If Rob Franken can stay within that magical 10-second window, he's going to inherit a position for free as Andy Boardman comes into the pit lane. Got to get it drawn up in time for the limiter, and I think he just about did. It looked very touch and go as he got towards that board, and it's always one of those things, isn't it, Matt? Coming into the pit lane, you think you know the braking point, you slam on, you punch the pedal through the firewall, and that split second like earlier, and you would have got it drawn up in time, and your heart just sinks when you know that it's very touch and go, and you have to wait, of course, until the car crosses the pit exit line until the penalty is given out. And Jesse Lee, of course, alluding to now Les Stevenson up another podium position, of course, onto the second step. And that is some very good going by the British driver, of course, the number 46, regular here at RCI, even part of the staff roster with us as well. So it's good to see, of course, the staff getting their chance to race, and you'll catch a lot more of the staff in the RCI 6-hour community series. And if you haven't signed up for it yet, I ask you why not, because there are prizes on the table, of course, courtesy from our sponsor of IMB Racewear. You can, of course, inherit lots of fabulous things over there just for even competing as well. There is a giveaway at the end of every round, so certainly head on over to the website, check out all the events at the moment, and maybe even you fancy your chances in the TCX Cup. It's not too late for a mid-season sign-up, and of course getting involved in all of the antics and action here. Matt, pit window is just about closing. 3 minutes to go. Christopher Streppen either has to come now or the next lap, and it's even going to be very tight if he gets delayed or makes a mistake on the following lap.
Yeah, it's very close. He has to come in at this lap. It's all or nothing here, because 3 minutes to go. It's with these times being 2 minutes a lap. It's too close to call. As you can see with Streppen also coming in just now, so we need to put it against the guys, the rest of them trying to go in, because they need to take advantage of it. So it's all about trying to manage that gap and trying to manage the timer that's ticking down, because I've been almost caught out a few times before, even when it comes to the driver stints. Like, I've managed to work it all the way down to the final second at one point as well. As you see, Les has actually gone round as Martin Lawrence has gone in, so it could be that Les might see a little bit more time trying to take full advantage of the overcut. But again, and so as well as that, Sebastian Buerner is also going around too, so they are cutting the wire far too close here. It's 2 minutes 13 seconds till the pit lane closes. With Buerner just taking that lap in just now, he's literally got a 10 to 12 second leeway on this.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like a lot, but of course, remember, if you spin or make a mistake, it's normally about 5 seconds, 6 seconds, maybe even more to get the car back underway. And Les Stevenson leads here at the TCX Cup round 3 at Monza. Of course, still yet to take his pit stop along with Sebastian Brunier, but at least Les can say he's led a lap, especially against the likes of Christopher Streppen, Martin Lawrence, Klaus Nyring, Andy Boardman, just to name a few in the field at the moment, and still coming under pressure from one of the Sim Brothers entries just behind. They are a lap down, I believe, on this one, possibly one of the Nordqvist brothers, I would say, roughly looking at the gaps there. Possibly Victor Nordqvist in the number 19 as Les hops his way through the Ascari chicane. Very clean indeed. Not too much traffic ahead. He's not going to catch it by the time he gets down to Parabolica, so Les Stevenson should be in this lap, followed by Sebastian Brunier, the two of the last late pitters. We're going to have to see how this overcut has treated them. Of course, Les with a bit of traffic coming into the first chicane in the form of a Sim Brothers car. So indicator on once again. That's a rarity. Twice in one night we've seen a BMW indicate here on RCI TV. And Les Stevenson into the pit lane. Onto the brakes he goes. Pit limiter goes on. Of course, the headlights dim down, which is a great indicator for us up here in the booth. We can really see when the driver pushes that into the lane, and Sebastian Brunier about to do the same. Will we see an indicator from Sebastian? I don't think so. Nobody's really behind him that needs to know. And like a typical BMW driver, Sebastian living up to the stereotype. No indicator into the pit lane. That looked very tight on the speed limiter, but we'll catch that when he comes out of his pit stop. So let's see where Les filters in. Of course, Christopher Streppen on his outlap is going to be pushing. Klaus Nyring equally pushing behind. And Andy Boardman knows that he has to get the hammer down, pardon the pun, to get past the drop in the hammer car of Les Stevenson.
Yeah, definitely. As we go over to Verstappen, he's going to make the pass over the two guys in the pit lane. So that's brought himself back up on to the top of the podium spot, with Nyring also not that far behind. So there isn't really too much to gain from it, with Andy Boardman also coming out of the pit lane as well. So it hasn't really gone too much of the advantage towards Les Stevenson or Sebastian Brunier just yet. But he just lost out the heel as well. So again, it wasn't probably the best going all the way to the end of the pit window section here. But again, it's still a valiant effort from Les Stevenson and Sebastian Brunier going all the way to the end of the pit window timer.
Yeah, really pushing the timer there on the 20-minute pit window. Of course, all drivers have met the requirements down the left-hand side. Nobody has forgotten, which we have seen in the past here at RCI TV several times or so. Just looking towards the pit stop timer, Christopher Streppen 1 minute 8 from pit in to pit out. Klaus Nyring 1 minute 9. Andy Boardman very fast at 1 minute 3. So I wonder if Boardman has decided to not take tyres, and maybe the leaders have taken tyres in a bid to try and prolong themselves towards the end of the race. Because, Matt, if you've got the buffer that, of course, Christopher Streppen has, why wouldn't you elect to take a fresh set of Pirellis? Of course, you'll have a little bit more grip towards the end of the race. You'll maybe be able to dial the pressures in a little bit better than you did in the qualifying and, of course, the early stage of the race. So you can go all the way to the end on a nice fresh set of Pirellis and maybe even try and steal that fastest lap back from Nyring for those bonus points.
Yeah, definitely. But the problem you've got with taking new tires is those tires will be quite cold as well, because there's no tire blankets for these cars. So they'll be driving out on ice cold tires, which could sacrifice a bit of time with the people behind them. So again, it really depends on it. And I think there's a few more penalties that's coming through. Do you want to go through that, John?
Yeah, let's have a look here. McKenna McConnell, of course, updating us with the pieces of paper coming through to us. So we've got a very messy one here. This is from lap 8, turn 7. This is involving the 137, the 508, and the 808. It deemed 20 seconds for the car 508. Jesse Lee wishes he could show a replay. Here it is on your screen at the moment as a very big impact there. So I'm going to read what the stewards have written. It's a very lengthy one, probably the longest one I'm ever going to read here. So it comes down to the number 137 spins on their own and is stationary on the racing line. The 508 fails to react to the parked car despite plenty of time and has avoidable contact and causes major damage to the 137. There's a 20 seconds given for the avoidable contact, increased due to the driver's failure to react to the incident, in brackets, yellow flag. The 808 was then unsighted and has unavoidable contact with the 137. And once upon a time, there was a few race cars and they crashed. The end. And that's what I felt like reading out that very long steward's report. And next up in the list is a lap 10 turn 2 involving the 31, the 280, the 999 and the 777. It was a 5 seconds for the 280, and here it is on your screens at the moment. Into the turn 1. Of course, this was the turning of Kevin Boss by Kerrigan and the concertina behind of the Sim brothers. It was deemed the 280 had avoidable contact on the 31, and the 999 and the 777 have no time to react. So that's how that one has gone down. We then got a warning for the car number 63 for avoidable contact, and then a few more racing incidents, minor contacts. And I've just spotted Kalyanov with a drive-through penalty as well. That's only going to be for track limits, which is something we haven't discussed for once here, Matt. Normally every round we say track limits are going to be here, 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 and here, and we're going to get at least 1 or 2 drive-throughs, and we haven't really spoke about it here at Monza, but it's still possible. Of course, the exit of Lesmo 2 is quite a popular one, and of course the exit of Ascari, and also Parabolica if you're really pushing the envelope that hard, but a little less common than the others. And Kalyanov certainly pushing the limits tonight and has found the limits in the form of a drive-through penalty.
Yeah, definitely. I think for this track anyway, the exit of Ascari is definitely the best place to trip yourself up and get those track limits. I would say in some extreme circumstances, you might be able to see it through turn 1 if you don't take that chicane properly. If you go a little bit too fast for that section at turn 1, you could also pick up a track penalty there, which I've done a couple of times before. You can see we're at the back of Ricciardo here, still on the back of Sebastian Brummer, so he's got the toe, but he's got that dirty air as well, so he has to make sure he can be able to secure that position nice and cleanly. But again, with these cars here, it's pretty hard to get the toe to work in your advantage with these cars not being very powerful, not very aerodynamically efficient either, so he has to fully rely on that mechanical grip and the 3-litre 6 inline engine that this car can provide.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's like we say, the slipstream more prevalent within the realm of the GT3s with much more aero. Of course, these M2CSs a little bit more kind of entry level, beginner friendly, less aero, like you say, more mechanical grip. So although there is a slipstream there, it's not massively beneficial, but again, in terms of chasing lap times, hot lapping, qualifying, it can make all the difference. And Stefano Ricciardo struggling through the Lesmos to keep with Sebastian Brunier ahead, the number 668, nearly on pace. Drivers certainly on the pace today, and fingers crossed Sebastian makes it to the end this time, because just inside the top 10 is normally where we expect to see Sebastian in these races. And great to see him back from a hiatus. I mean, he's been in the background engineering things for us here at RCI and over at the Nearly On Pace camp as well, but great to see him jump back in a car, Matt, after such a kind of long time. We see it all the time in ACC. Adam, I forget his surname, from Forza Italia, I want to say Dubil, had a long hiatus a while ago, came back with us here at RCI. We even interviewed him just a few months ago, and he said the game has changed so much, but the core values are still there. The core kind of knowledge, the driving style, etc., that he employed so many years ago is still relevant today. And it's great to see names dipping their toe in and out of the water, even if it is for a few races.
It's definitely great to see people back into the car seats once again, but it's one of those things where you can't just lose out entirely. It's like riding a bike when you drive these cars. Like the second you jump back on it, yes, you still stumble a little bit, but once you get the first few laps done, you're back at your element once again. You can see Sebastian Brummer is holding on to a really solid race here. He did it last week again with the Red Bull Ring, and it was just unfortunate to have those technical difficulties, but it's great to see when you're just taking a break from racing, you just come back in and you just give that same performance that you've gone and done before. That's just exceptional in some degree.
Yeah, absolutely so. And Stefano Ricciardo certainly putting him under pressure through that first sector. Of course, being a little bit closer enables him to drag himself forwards on the straights. Having a little look into Lesmo too, psyching Seb out, almost trying to divert his eye from the breaking point and the apex all the way to the mirror. And Sebastian racing, of course, in VR, so it's probably even more kind of going on in front of his face. It's a very good thing, you know, racing on a monitor. You can kind of look away for a brief moment and realize, oh, I'm actually sat at a desk, or I'm sat in a sim rig here. But the reality of VR, of course, with how kind of immersive it is. You've got the screens in front of your face, essentially. Maybe even some of the graphic settings in ACC you've got set can dazzle you with the headlights of the other drivers, and it can be really, really distracting. And I don't know how anybody drives in VR for more than about half an hour, 40 minutes. I've done some rally in VR, maybe 15, 20 minutes in a competition once, and that was enough for me. It was just too involving, I think is the word. It plays with your brain a lot, as Stefano Ricciardo gets a better run out of Parabolica, manages to draw alongside Sebastian as they head over the grid spots towards turn one. And Ricciardo's car certainly looks a lot faster, but can Sebastian do anything on the brakes, or will he play it a bit cautiously? Both cars hard on the brakes. You see the nose dip down. Ricciardo opening up the steering. It's getting very close through turn one. I hate this camera angle, Matt. You can never truly tell how close the cars are as they go through the transition from the right to the left.
As we got a replay, Jesse's gonna give us a replay of that at the very end. It's just, yeah, it wasn't too close at all. But that camera angle does put you off a few times. Like, we do see a few door bangs here and there, but again, Ricciardo's done a really good job of just getting that Parabolica straight done. As you can see with Nick de Vries at the back of Callum Kerrigan, they've both got penalties as well. So it's about trying to manage the penalties and try and get yourself ahead of either driver, because if Nordqvist can able to give himself a good gap towards Kerrigan, he can able to hold off against Franken, who's additional 5 seconds, nearly 6 seconds behind. So again, it's trying to maximize the points, but you just gotta have to remember that he's got that time penalty from the incident he caused earlier on.
Yeah, Rob Franken certainly gaining time, should we say, to the back of Victor Nordqvist. It was about 9 seconds, I think, at the start of the stints when the pit stops kind of cycled through. So down to 5.8 now. Rob Franken just has to not over push, but keep doing what he's doing and just trying to inch his way a little bit closer. I think that's Mike Redford just behind as well. That's going to be a lapped car. Just trying to find where Redford is. P19 actually at the moment. So that's not going to be too bothering for Rob Franken. Of course, Kevin Boss is 25 seconds back down the road. We've got Christopher Streppen 35 seconds behind as well, so I don't think Verstappen will lap him. So Rob Franken literally out for a nice kind of Monday evening drive in the Italian countryside, and just has to keep it on the straight and narrow, and he should in theory naturally pass this man here, Victor Nordqvist, especially if Callum Kerrigan is backing him up somewhat into the train of Rob Franken. Of course, the Callum Kerrigan car also with 5 seconds, Matt. So it's almost going to be like a double loss kind of gain in a sense, isn't it? Kerrigan's going to slip behind Nordqvist, but then Nordqvist's going to slip back 10 seconds, and I think Kerrigan's going to be in a kind of Rob Franken, Victor Nordqvist sandwich by the time the checkered flag ends.
Yeah, definitely. It's like, as you were saying, with that nice country drive, when you go drive through the country, you still got to be careful about the deers that might jump out in front of you. So it's about, because again, these people can make mistakes, that anything can happen. So while you could be going out for your nice Monday night drive, you've got to be watching out for the deers that might jump out in front of you. Oh, speaking of which, Christian Lindgarden's got the broken window. Let's see what happened here. Sorry, John, for butting in there, but yeah, it seems it comes through the second chicane here up to the first curve. He's all by himself in a minute. As you can see, goes around the curves there. He seems to go... Yeah, look, I know what's going to happen. He's got a little bit too wide, slides off, and just hits the wall there. It's that saving that. Just like I said, you might be taking a nice Monday evening stroll, but if you see a deer that runs out, you've got nothing to do about it.
There's the commentator once again, possibly striking there, but finding the really awkward part of the wall there was Christian Lindgren. He found the gap kind of in the tyre wall, where one tyre wall ended and another began for like a marshal's post, and managed to catch it quite hard in there. So big damage for the number 48. Time will tell if he limps around until the end or whether he comes in, tries to fix the damage, but takes the time loss. He's just coming around Parabolica now. So we should get to see if he comes into the pit lane on track map. It looks like he's slowing a little bit, but Callum Kerrigan coming under fire from Victor Nordquist into the Ascara chicane. Christian Lindgren has just driven past us below our feet, so he stays out on track, going to be limping the number 48 around, possibly a new headlight, bumper, bonnet, wing in the BMW basket already to purchase for the next round. But Victor Nordquist has kind of met, I wouldn't say a stalemate here, but he's finding it very hard to get past Callum Kerrigan's car. And of course, the clock is ticking. And you almost don't want to do too much at this point, Matt, because you've already gained one penalty. The last thing you want to do is gain another. So you're almost better just kind of holding station and just following in the wake of Callum Kerrigan and seeing if you can try and open that gap to, of course, Rob Franken behind.
Yeah, definitely. It's like you just have to be careful because 6 minutes to go. There isn't really too much of advantage that Victor Nordquist can do really, other than just win it on merit. I would just want to say, but again, he's still yet to get through at turn 1. But again, he is catching Callum, but it's just that Callum is able to put the car in a little bit of a better spot than what Victor can do. So just over 5.5 minutes to go, I really wouldn't risk it with that much time and with the penalties that have been applied to both of those cars.
Yeah, certainly not worth risking. Just having a quick scroll down to the steward's box. It is quiet. Lap 14 was the last report that came through. Lap 26 is what the race leader is on now, and Christopher Streppen 6.9 seconds ahead of Klaus Neiring. So certainly pushing the limits of the number 747. Andy Boardman 8.5 seconds back on Klaus Neiring. So Klaus almost in the John Dalton zone, where you're too fast for the guy behind, but too slow for the car ahead. So you sit in this awkward no man's land, and Andy Boardman currently has a friend in the form of Raphael Huell just behind him, 4/10 to the good. So this could be a fight that we see go down to the checkered flag. Les Stevenson unfortunately slipped off the back of Andy Boardman, nearly 8 seconds down. He finds Martin Lawrence pressuring him now in the background. And Christian Lindgren, after the hard lick in the wall, 20 seconds back on Martin Lawrence and 6.1 ahead of Stefano Ricciardo. This time Sebastian Brunier having to defend from Matthias Byron into the first chicane. It got very close on the switchback, but Sebastian prevails over the number 100 entry of the Sim Brothers Racing, and they will go 1 or 2 more laps at least yet. And this is going to be another hard one fought down to the wire, Matt. So we've got a couple of fights still lurking on track. Some fights will be determined by penalties as well, but all in all, relatively a good night as Victor Nordquist tries again. Callum Kerrigan into turn 1. No. The outside, of course, becoming the inside. Side by side. This could be the one. This could be where Victor Nordquist prevails. Looks like Callum Kerrigan has better drive off the corner. And once again, we go stalemate with Victor Nordquist and Callum Kerrigan. Kerrigan there, much better drive out the corner. And of course, it's a long run down to the second chicane, Matt.
Yeah, definitely. You have to be careful going through that second chicane, because again, if they go side by side on there, that's another place where they can miss out. See Raphael Huell on the back of Andy Boardman's car again. He's going to get that toe through turn 1. It looks like he's got a bit of a better going on it because he's getting closer to that rear bumper. Trying to find the outside little lane here. But remember, for this corner here, once you're on the outside, you'll soon be right on the inside lane as they go side by side towards turn 1. They're almost bashing each other's doors in. As Raphael Huell just inches ahead of him, but Andy Boardman just, it's a little bit of a touch for the rear bumper there. He's just not able to capitalize on that. It's just Boardman just squeezes Huell out onto the outside line there. As we can go over, Nordquist managed to secure the position over Callum Kerrigan. As we go have a watch in here, he looks to be he's on the outside line here going through one of the curves. He has a bit more speed, so he's able to hold it much better than Callum Kerrigan. Again, on the outside of the second curve here, he's able to secure that spot right in the start of the corner there. That was a pretty good overtake at that point there. It's not very common to see an overtake from the outside of those two curves.
Yeah, we normally say the Lesmos around the outside isn't really the place to do it. There's been contact between Byron and I assume Sebastian Bruni as they went into turn one. We get a bit of a medium replay here coming down across the start finish straight. Of course, Matthias Byron once again on the outside, Sebastian to the left. Byron certainly much later on the brakes and far too late on the brakes. Came back on, managed to get it back under control, and Sebastian, of course, goes back through. Very honourable from the Sim Brothers Racing entry there, and it's far too easy to steal the position when something like that happens. Callum Kerrigan back onto Victor Nordquist, and we said it earlier on, Matt, Rob Franken now drawn into the fight. This could be 2 positions lost for Callum Kerrigan. He was looked to only lose one, may not even lose one at this point, but of course we come down to the penultimate lap, so these guys have this lap and one more to go as Christopher Streben has just crossed the start finish line. Looks like Sim Brothers entry too far into the second chicane. That's going to bring Rob Franken 3 wide into the Lesmos we go. Rob Franken on the inside, Callum Kerrigan in the middle, and Nordquist around the outside. Kerrigan tries the old up and under. Rob Franken prevails through the Lesmos on the inside to Lesmo 2. Goes Rob Franken, drives through Callum Kerrigan and Victor Nordquist like they weren't even there. That's some outstanding pace from Rob Franken. Very well done to those 3 drivers. Jesse Lee is clapping in the background. He can't believe what he's just witnessed. And that's some brilliant stuff, as we saw Mike Redford, I believe, in the background, exiting off. And Callum Kerrigan looks like he's braked too late for the Ascari chicane, but Huell and Boardman, it's very close into the second chicane. Huell just about prevails. Boardman with a bit of a wiggle on the exit, and Raphael Huell up onto the bottom step of the podium. Andy Boardman down into 4th position. I think Callum Kerrigan overcooked Ascari as well, somehow saving it, and now it looks like Victor Nordquist really close onto the back of Rob Franken. It's all kicking off, Matt.
That was very close contact indeed. As you can see, as we see, everybody's going in for the all or nothing lap here. Matthias Byron at the back of Sebastian Bremer, still trying to get past him once again, going through towards the second chicane. You've also got Andy Boardman and the likes of Huell still trying to fight it out over the Ascari chicane. As we go towards the checkered flag here with Christopher Streppin taking such a commanding lead from the start with that 8-second gap he's got to produce from there. So it's a good on win for him at Monza here today.
Yeah, it's a hard-fought fight, wasn't it, for Verstappen, but he did prevail over this man here. Klaus Naring comes through in 2nd place to take the next step of the podium, and Raphael Huell started in P8. I did say he was a bit of a dark horse at the beginning. He comes through to take the bottom step of the podium. You can see he's elated, a flash of the lights, a slight weave there as well, and Andy Boardman comes through in P4. Matthias Byron sizing up Sebastian Brunier through Ascari. Seb's got the worst run, and unfortunately Matthias Byron prevails over Sebastian Brunier. It all comes down to the penultimate corner once again on that fight. We've got Les Stevenson crossing the line in 5th. Kevin Boss, Kalyanov and Crinzen set in that order as well. Christian Lindgren comes through in P6 with a flicker of a headlight from the earlier on damage he sustained. Martin Lawrence fully wrecking the car there, the number 171, what could have been from pole position. P7, sorry, is all Martin Lawrence will achieve. Stefano Ricciardo P8, Byron P9, Sebastian Brunier in P10. We then got a Lundqvist train here in the form of Alphonse prevailing over Peter, the 75 over the 999 as they come across the line. Rob Franken, of course, we spoke about him earlier. He is the next car in the queue to take the checkered flag ahead of Victor Nordquist and Callum Kerrigan in their fight. Of course, they've got time penalties to serve on that one, so the order will shuffle behind ever so slightly as they come across the line. And I think Mike Redford, possibly the last car to cross the line, the number 95 MYK Racing. As he crosses the line, the board should flick over. There we go. A very delayed finish, but we did lose a few cars along the way as well. So final results on your screen, of course, pending any further stewards penalties or post-race penalties, anything like that. So Christopher Streppen will, of course, win, as we saw earlier on, very commanding over Klaus Naring Raphael Huell, the bit of the dark horse, prevailed over Andy Boardman. Les Stevenson unfortunately couldn't keep with Boardman after the pit stops, but P5 still very commendable for the British driver. Christian Lindgren, followed by Martin Lawrence, Stefano Ricciardo, Matthias Byron, of course, prevailing over Sebastian Brunier. We then got the Sim brothers in the form of the Lundqvist, Alphonse and Peter. Rob Franken, followed by Callum Kerrigan and Victor Nordquist, after the penalties have, of course, been handed out. Kevin Boss in P16, Daniel Crinzen in P17, Kalyanov P18, Mike Redford after a less than ideal race P19, Philip Reha P20, Tom Shipston saw it out to the end, very commendable there, congrats Tom in the number 60 after his earlier on accident. Nicholas Nordquist and Peter Varga, of course the big one through the Lesmos, unfortunately did not finish the race, but nevertheless still managed to get 23 cars, Matt, through a lap of Monza, lap 1 clean.
Yeah, lap 1 was definitely clean, but I wouldn't say that for the rest of the race. It was just carnage for the rest of it, but it was all just for fighting for the points and fighting for those positions here today. I think even with those incidents involved, we still got to say thank you to the drivers who were here tonight, and given that they're all here, like a lot of these guys, they're all trying their best. They're all wanting to try and get their place here in RCI.
Yeah, absolutely. So plenty of RCI regulars, of course, in the field, and a few new faces as well to boot. So if you do want to get involved, of course, head on over to racerci.com, where you can check out all of our events anytime, day or night. Currently, of course, the 6-hour series is ongoing, both the esports and the community leg. They head to round 2 for the IMB 6 hours of Silverstone. Esports October 12th. And the community leg October 5th. So keep your eyes out for that one. Of course, the mini stock one-off iRacing was just last weekend. That looked like a hoot of fun in the screenshots that I saw. Of course, this Wednesday, we've got the iRacing multi-class sprint season 1. They're continuing their leg down at Laguna Seca for round 4. Saturday, of course, we have Night Owl back with us once again, a very popular series with those that like to race a little bit later in the evenings, or those that are on a slightly skewed timescale to the rest of Europe. Martin Lawrence apparently came from the back of the grid in the first round at the Nürburgring GP, where they took a victory over Jordan Daly and Joe Dorber in Pro. And down in silver, it was a Czech lockout with Philip Reha taking victory over Masatoshi Kaneko and Fabio Greiner on that one. So still plenty of rounds to get your teeth sunk into there. They head to Monza this week coming. Barcelona, Silverstone, Zandvoort and Spa is also on the calendar. So all base game tracks. So plenty of opportunity there if you are still dipping your toe into the ACC world and you want to experience a championship for the first time. But in the box with us, tonight's race winner, Christoph Verstappen. Welcome on in. Congratulations for tonight. And of course, congratulations for last night as well, where you equally took victory at Monza. It looked tough out there in the mid-pack, but you managed to get a good start over Martin Lawrence, and you just kind of drove away from everybody.
Yeah, evening, boys. Yeah, we had an amazing start. I didn't know what we did right there to jump Martin on the start, but yeah, from there on it was just controlling the race.
Yeah, absolutely. So just kind of like controlling the race, like you say, no real need to push. It just kind of naturally came to you, I would say, as everybody else began to fight behind you. Monza, particular favourite circuit, or just an easy one to kind of learn? Matt said earlier it was easy to learn but hard to master.
I've always liked Monza. It's a bit of therapy for me to drive here. There's not much corners, but you have to nail them to get everything out of the track.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, 2 home races, should we say, on the calendar as well. Of course, next week we head to Zolder before we finalise in Spa. Aiming to take victory at both of those, I can only assume.
We surely will fight for victory, but I'm not sure if it will be one. I've been struggling all season, to be honest, or probably, as you know, with the braking and everything with the car. So, yeah.
maybe a bit of an insight there. If anybody's listening that wants to rival Christoph, maybe you can have him on the brakes into one of the corners. Who knows? Matt, anything to ask Chris?
I think the only question I'm going to ask is with these M2s here, I think with the guys, everybody else doing their best to try and get the championship in their favor, who do you think would be your rival to beat for the next coming races?
It's hard to say because on some races Andy was super quick, then other races Klaus was really up there. Yeah, and Martin is always up there. So I guess one of those three is probably gonna be the ones to beat.
Yeah, it's always jam-packed with everybody trying to fight for the last final bits there. But once again, Christoph, congratulations on winning both yesterday and today for the M2 race.
Okay,
Chris,
thanks,
just before we
boys.
let you go, anyone you'd like to say thanks to?
Thanks to Klaus for the setup tonight. Yeah, the win is all because of him. Yeah.
So great there. Yeah, probably Klaus maybe a little bit of regret steeping in there, but certainly both of you had very good pace tonight. So yeah, kudos to Klaus on that one. Well done, Chris. Thank you very much. We're going to let you head off now as we begin to wrap up things here tonight at RCI TV. And of course, we'd like to say a big thank you to you guys at home if you've joined us for tonight, or whether you're watching back. We appreciate each and every one of you. And if, like I say, you do want to get involved, head on over to the website racerci.com, or alternatively, if you're looking to get involved with us here in a team sense, we do of course have a vacancies board within the Discord. If you do want to get involved either as a commentator, broadcaster, or steward, of course, head over to the staff vacancies board, have a look, have a little read through each kind of role description, should we say. It's not really a job. Of course, everybody here at RCI volunteers, enjoying what we do as a team. So plenty of space for you to join the RCI family and DM the relevant staff member with your details. But of course, it is that time when we do say goodbye, and not before we say thank you to our partners. Of course, they've been revolving around in the bottom left hand side of your screen on a little ticker. AK Esports, of course, the top provider of premium esports services and equipment. AK, of course, offering everything you need to elevate your competitive gaming experience, from high performance hardware to expert coaching and event management. They also provide us here our service solutions at RCI, ensuring everybody has a smooth and enjoyable racing experience. Go Setups need no introduction. Every time I mention their name, everybody knows exactly what they do, does what it says on the tin. You need a setup for a certain circuit, or even for every circuit, Go Setups will probably have the pack that you need. Head on over to their website, check out their offerings, of course, featuring a plethora of esports stars. You can be sure the setup you choose has extensive hours behind it. And lastly, but no means least, the newcomer to the roster in 2024, Monza Racing, who we are thrilled to partner with, a leader in high-quality sim racing gear, from precision-engineered steering wheels to durable pedals and advanced wheelbases. Monza Racing has everything you need to boost your racing experience. We do have an affiliate link down below now in the description, so if you are looking to pick up any new hardware this season, coming Christmas season, maybe you've even got a birthday coming up and you want to treat yourself, use that link and of course sprinkle some pennies into the RCI pot. Every little helps here with us. They do have some very tasty looking pedals that I still have my eye on, by the way, so that could be a future purchase for myself. But for tonight, that is of course where we wrap it up. We'd like to say thank you very much for joining us here for round 3 of the TCX Cup. Join us again next Monday, where we head to Zolder. Practice beginning at 7 o'clock, stream beginning normally 7:45 UK time. And we'd like to have you along for the ride, because Zolder always provides some fantastic and chaotic racing to boot. So be sure to tune in for that one as the championship fight heats up as we head to round 4 with 3 rounds to go. It could be anyone's guess on who will take the title. From myself, John Dalton, from Matt Malcolm alongside me, and Jesse Lee behind the cameras, and not forgetting our live stewards, thank you very much for joining us. We hope you have a wonderful rest of the week, And we hope to see you once again here on RCI TV very soon. Take care.